Hello there. Welcome into a Friday edition of the show. I am so glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the widely available and 100% free Extra Sports 1300 app. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the next 2.5 hours. And then for the 3 hours thereafter, it'll be all soccer. Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC taking a shot against the best team that the USL Championship Eastern Conference has to offer, that being Louisville City FC. Roland Vargas and myself on the call. Pre-match coverage, 5:30, kickoff at 6 o'clock. So let's get to it. 719-247-1313. As the text and the phone line for your convenience. I just saw this before I went on air. So while it's fresh in my head, why don't we dive into it? Saw FanDuel, popular betting site, put out its NFL power rankings. And it got my attention because I think that there are so many teams that are out of place. Their top 5, I think, would be most people's top 5 teams. You may order them a little bit differently, but Kansas City, Baltimore, San Francisco, Detroit, Cincinnati. I'd probably move Philly up to the 5 spot, drop Detroit to 6. But right there, those 6 teams, that's the Super Bowl bubble. And one team that I think has the ability to break into that bubble as well as Green Bay. So I'd probably look at 7 teams that I could see potentially playing in the Super Bowl. Doesn't mean I don't have questions about those teams. But looking at them, that's the elite of the NFL. Kansas City, Baltimore. I go KC 1, San Francisco 2, Baltimore 3, Cincinnati 4, Philly 5, Detroit 6, Green Bay 7. And I think by the end of the year, Green Bay might be better than Detroit. Then I look, they have Dallas too high and the Jets too high. They have the Jets 6, Dallas 7. I know Dallas wins a lot of games, but they didn't do anything. If these are power rankings, what did Dallas do to move the needle? And the answer is nothing. So having them in the top 10 would just be because they kept everybody. Not because they made strides to be better. If I look through these, I think the Chargers at 19, I know they have some questions at wide receiver, but I think the Chargers are better than the 19th. They made one of the more significant additions this offseason, getting Jim Harbaugh. So I think having them at 19 is too low. But really what stuck out to me was the fact that they have the Denver Broncos as dead last. Pro Football Focus came out recently and said that the worst roster in the NFL is just up the road in Denver. More likely than not, they're going to be starting a first-year quarterback, game 1. right? That's not, setting aside CJ Stroud, that's not normally conducive to a ton of success. But Broncos can't be the worst team. But I think perception of Denver really lies in how much you put with Sean Payton. Because above the Broncos on these power rankings, you have New England. Drake May, when do we see him? But essentially, first-year head coach, first-year quarterback. Pretty devoid of talent. Then you have Carolina. Basically starting over with Bryce Young in his second year, right? There was nothing good to be gleaned from Bryce Young's rookie year. So he's essentially starting from the same spot with a new head coach. Tennessee, Will Levis gets the full-time gig with the first-year head coach. To me, having Sean Payton kind of acts as a bit of a tiebreaker for me with those other teams I just mentioned. Because I don't think Tennessee, Carolina, New England, Arizona, throw them into the mix. I think all of those rosters are pretty devoid of talent. What you like about Arizona, obviously, is the Kyler Murray to Marvin Harrison connection. But outside of that, not a lot to like with Arizona. So while I'm not skyrocketing the Denver Broncos way up the list, I do think they're one of the probably 5 worst teams in the NFL. But to have them dead last, I think Sean Payton's worth more than that. And coincidentally, that's what Sean Payton's betting on. Sean Payton's betting on himself. Because he said that this team is going to win more than people think. After an offseason where he basically took most of the Broncos' good players and got rid of them. And he also got rid of Russell Wilson in an unrelated move. I'd put Denver above New England, Carolina, and Tennessee. But if Bo Nix makes some strides, they have a little bit more upward mobility. Another thing that sticks out to me is you have the Las Vegas Raiders at 24. Because what? They have Gardner Minshew? Like, I get it. They have Devontae Adams. Did you not see the show Receiver? It's not a lot of good that Devontae does with that football team because he doesn't have a quarterback. So I look at Vegas at 24 and the Broncos at 32, and I say they're too far apart. They need to be brought much closer together. That's going to be a battle for the AFC West cellar. Those two teams are going to be neck and neck this whole way. And then there will be quite a bit of separation between those two teams and LA, and then some separation between LA and Kansas City. So it is stark when you see Vegas with so many teams separating themselves in Denver. And then you look and you see Kansas City's number 1, Denver's 32, and you look at Kansas City being number 1, and the next closest AFC West team is LA at 19. If you remember, it wasn't just the greatness of the New England Patriots that allowed them to continue their reign of terror in the AFC East for all those years. Right? It wasn't just how good they were. It was how the other three teams in their division tripped all over themselves on a yearly basis trying to figure out the right formula to go at New England. And the same thing has been happening in the AFC West. Kansas City is that good. But they aren't challenged on a year-to-year basis, not because just how good they are, but also how the other three teams in the division can't get out of their own way. How they, with Denver, take big swings on a quarterback when they probably should not have with Russell Wilson. And it puts them, certainly doesn't move the needle, maybe puts them in a worse spot. Then you have the Chargers, who held on to Brandon Staley year after year, despite this team continuing to fail late in games. And then the Raiders have been just a mess. And they have Devontae Adams fall into their lap. And they can't, and they haven't been able to make it work yet. And I don't expect them to this year. And they'll either go out and pay Dak Prescott, or they'll draft a quarterback to try and make Devontae Adams happy and make him not demand a trade. But that caught my eye today. I was like, wow. Yeah, the same thing that has happened to New England for 20 years has happened to Kansas City for about a decade. They're great. Everyone else is a mess. But that being said, I would not put Denver at the bottom. Near the bottom for sure. But I think it has a lot to do with Sean Payton. I'll take Sean Payton over Gerard Mayo. Now, remember, it was Bill Belichick coaching last year when those two teams met. I'll take Sean Payton over Gerard Mayo. I'll take Sean Payton over Canales. I'll take Sean Payton over Callahan. And if Bo Nix has some glimpses, I'll take Denver over Arizona, but that's the group that they are living in. That's not a group that you would say is going to win more than we think they will. But Sean Payton believes they will. And it's because of him. Not because of the roster necessarily, because he thinks that he can coach up this team. And look at what happened last year. There were some wins that you did not expect this team to get. Sean Payton had something to do with it, but I won't go down the way I had it. I had the Broncos. New Orleans was another one that I put down a little bit on this list. I had Denver 29 as I was just sketching it out, but Chargers I had 14th, so a little bit higher. Raiders down further. So, it's the fun time of year. Putting out the things like power rankings and quarterback lists and things like that. But training camp will begin in earnest. I guess technically it started with, rookies reporting and everything. But this time next week, training camp will be in full bloom. 719-247-1313. want to stick with football coming up next because Willie Anderson, longtime Cincinnati Bengals right tackle, had an interesting theory as to why he and so many right tackles in his mind have been snubbed from Canton. And it's Sandra Bullock's fault. I'll explain next on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. This Willie Anderson story, longtime Cincinnati Bengals right tackle. It's funny because I was just having a conversation about this with someone the other day as it pertains to the Denver Broncos extending Quinn Meinerz, Garrett Bowles without any job security past this season. So this Willie Anderson story kind of drops in and fits right along that. So here we go. Willie Anderson goes on Kay Adams' Up and Adams show. I'm giving FanDuel a lot of love, talking about their power rankings in the first segment and then Kay Adams in the second segment. But at any rate, had an interesting theory as to why he and other people that played his position of right tackle are not getting into the Hall of Fame. He blames Sandra Bullock. Not because of what Sandra Bullock did in the movie Speed or Miss Congeniality, but The Blind Side. He blames The Blind Side for altering our perspective on the importance of the tackle position. Because of that, and it was a book before it was a movie, but the popularity of Michael Orr's story is also leading us to put, and by us, I mean media, I mean literally us, me, not you, putting too much importance on the left tackle position because they protect the blind side. And at first I heard that, and I was like, that's silly. And then I thought about the conversation I had just the other day. Because with the Denver Broncos, you would think that Garrett Bowles would be the top priority. Now, I said Bowles would be more of a priority over Quinn Meinerz in my mind if they wanted to keep Garrett Bowles because he plays tackle as opposed to guard. This is not a left tackle, right tackle thing. But they're letting their left tackle twist in the wind a little bit while they handed out one of the most lucrative contracts in franchise history to Mike McGlinchey, their right tackle. And I think that there's been a shift a little bit in the way that we perceive the tackle position because we're seeing more right tackles get lucrative deals. Certainly in Denver or with the Broncos, you understand how much everything can go awry if you don't have the right tackle position buttoned up. That's why Mike McGlinchey was such a great acquisition because the Broncos for years had issues with finding a right tackle, and you saw the results. So people around here understand that right tackle's very important. But it seems like throughout the NFL, there's more appreciation, more, love being given to the right tackles. And then I thought about it. I think it's just evening out. I think that's all it is. It's not that all of a sudden we're saying, oh, no, right tackle's more important. That's not what's going on. It's balancing out the importance of the tackles. The tackles are more important than the guards, who are more important than the centers. That's the hierarchy of your offensive line. But left tackle, right tackle, you need both. And Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl will tell you that you need both. That one against Tampa, not the other ones he's been in. I think Willie Anderson's 100% right. I think he's right. I think recently there has been a bias towards left tackle. I don't know that I can totally get on board with the idea that it's because of the blind side, but I think it exists or has existed. I think there has been a perception that left tackles are more important than right tackles. And only in the last couple of years are we starting, as a football viewing public, to start putting them on an equal footing. I don't have a better reason than Willie Anderson has for why that bias existed. It sounds preposterous, but he might just be right. Now, for his part, as far as the Hall of Fame goes, right? Because two things can be true at once. There could be a bit of a bias recently towards left tackles. But is that really what's keeping him out of the Hall of Fame? Is there a historical bias going on? Because if you think of the greatest tackles of all time, Anthony Munoz, left tackle. Jonathan Ogden, left tackle. Joe Thomas, left tackle. Walter Jones, left tackle. Calvin Pace, left tackle. Or Orlando Pace, sorry, left tackle. Forrest Gregg, Larry Allen, right tackles. It does seem like throughout history that the best tackles were more often than not left tackles. So, and that's long before the blind side came out. Some of those guys. So is that just happenstance? Or did teams make it a priority to put the best tackle they had at left tackle? But I think absolutely, and he talked about how he coaches youth football players, and for a time they all want to be left tackles. So I think he's onto something as far as the way that we view one versus the other, but there's some historical context that says that left tackle has produced better players than right tackle has over the years. Sounded silly, but the more I thought about it, because I was having a conversation and I was like, this is exactly what we were talking about, that now left tackle isn't looked at as the be-all, end-all. It's just tackle. Some are more suited to be on the left. Some are more suited to be on the right. But they're both important. Probably on pretty much equal footing. I think what kind of led Willie Anderson to this conclusion is, one, him coaching younger offensive linemen, and they all want to be protecting the blind side of the quarterback. But also, I think probably it was a little triggering to see Tony Boselli get in. Because when Tony Boselli got into the Hall of Fame, was that 2 years ago? I compared him to Terrell Davis. Like, there's no doubt that when he played, he was one of the best to ever play his position, but there wasn't the longevity with Tony Boselli the same way there wasn't the longevity with Terrell Davis. And for someone like Anderson, who played for more than a decade, was productive that entire time, did not deal with the injuries that Tony Baselli did, that probably added to it as well. It's hard to make an argument over Joe Thomas. That guy played for more than a decade and was brilliant. Tony Baselli, with the smaller sample size, as opposed to a right tackle who maybe wasn't as talented as Baselli, but certainly had more longevity. I think that plays a role into this as well. But it just might be Sandra Bullock's fault. So it's not just Michael Orr's life that is being adversely affected, although his life was initially made better and now he's claiming that it made it worse. Where are we at on that anyway? Has anybody checked up on whether Michael Orr won his lawsuit? I'll check on that during the break. A movie, because let's be honest, not as many people read the book as saw the movie. A movie is led to a bias of left tackle over right tackle. But look at some of the contracts that have been paid out. It's not necessarily one being more important than the other. It's just what your skill set is better for. And we're seeing it with the Denver Broncos. First order of business for Sean Payton was to bring in Mike McGlinchey. And Garrett Bowles is sitting there walking into the last year of his contract. And the idea that maybe the Broncos could be looking for a new left tackle, and Sean Payton being at least somewhat okay with that. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on that. Really do some soul searching over the next few minutes and let me know if the blind side has made you biased towards left tackles. And then when I come back, I want to talk to you about how the WNBA is back to their old tricks, old ways of kind of sabotaging themselves. Talk about that next. 719-247-1313 is the number if you want to interact with the show, either by phone or by text, which I know you do on your phone, but you get what I'm saying. Call or text in 719-247-1313. Going back to the opening of the show, power rankings heading into training camp. Was looking over FanDuel's and I'm like, this is way off. And I said, I don't think that the Broncos going into training camp are the worst team in the NFL. I think they're like fourth or fifth worst, which this texter seized on from the 719. LOL, Kaufman, when you're talking Bronx and they're standing in the NFL, you're rearranging garbage at the top of the can so you could twist tie it. LOL. That is actually, as someone who loves a good analogy, that's actually quite spot on. I don't know that it will make Broncos fans sleep better at night knowing that 3 teams are worse than them, as opposed to no teams being worse than them. But there is something that causes a visceral reaction when you see your team at the very bottom. And you're like, come on, the worst? We can't be the worst. In the end, you're right. Big picture, does it really matter if the Broncos are better than New England? Or they're better than Tennessee? Or they're better than Carolina? In fact, if they're not going to be much higher than 27th or 28th in the league, wouldn't you at that point rather they be the worst or the second worst? So they can have basically their pick. And if they want to entertain the possibility of pulling an Arizona Cardinals, remember, of course you remember, Josh Rosen, after 1 year, they were done with him, brought in Kyler Murray. If you want to entertain that possibility, you'd rather be picking 1 or 2 instead of 5 or 6, right? But you're right. The most important thing is that the Broncos are grouped with the teams they should be grouped with, which are the worst teams in the league. Steve G says, spot on with the Broncos, and Miami will be better this year, but as usual, they will overpay their QB. I mean, to the second part, you just don't have a choice. I put Miami in the same boat as Dallas. And it doesn't matter if you like Tua more. You can't like Tua so much more than Dak Prescott. And a lot of the same questions about Dak Prescott you have about Tua. What was Miami's record against the best teams in the league? I like Tua more than Dak, but they kind of suffer from the same affliction. But what choice does Dallas have? What choice does Miami have? If they don't have Tua, if they don't have Dak, then they have no chance. Then at that point, Miami's battling with New England for the bottom of the division. At least with Tua, you're in the conversation with Buffalo and the Jets. That's the thing. Yes, they'll probably pay Tua and it will be looked at as an overpay. But the only spot worst that you can be in than having a Tua or a Dak Prescott or a Kirk Cousins is to not have those guys. Miami, I had at 13. FanDuel has them at 14. They have Seattle in front of them, and I don't agree with that. I think Miami's better than Seattle. But you look at the teams above them, Rams, I think, are going to be very good. Houston is a lot of people's darling. I think they're a prime regression candidate, not because I don't think they're good, but because CJ Stroud played at such a high level that it's possible he takes a step back. And their schedule is brutal. Houston's schedule is really good. But Houston, I think, is better than Miami. Buffalo, you kind of still take Josh Allen, right? I mean, I thought Miami would beat out Buffalo for the division. I thought Miami was better than Buffalo last year, and because of Miami's deficiencies, Buffalo still won that division. Green Bay, Philly, Dallas, Jets, Bengals, Lions, Niners, Ravens, Chiefs. You could all make a case that they're better than Miami. I think Miami's in pretty good. I don't think they're too far off from where FanDuel has them. I have them one spot up. They're better than Seattle. 719-247-1313. I thought that the WNBA was done doing this. I thought they've moved on from being their own worst enemy. Early in the season, for every piece of really positive news about the WNBA came something that they were doing to themselves, right? We would see Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and we'd see this talent. It's like, it's amazing, the talent that they have. And then we'd watch the officiating and like, my God, the officiating's worse in the WNBA than it is the NBA. And then this great story about how Caitlin Clark is forcing teams to move their games to bigger arenas because so many people want to come out and see her. And then you have Cheryl Reeve, the head coach of the Minnesota Lynx and Team USA, who tweets out, the W is more than one player. And then Caitlin Clark takes the league by storm, and then Team USA snubs her. So it's like every step of the way, the WNBA has kind of pulled themselves back. One step forward, one step back. But for the last few weeks, it hasn't been that way. I mean, the Rookie of the Year conversation has been a little silly. Angel Reese is not really in the conversation with Caitlin Clark. So that's getting a little silly. But that's normal sports talk that we go through. Right? That it's good for the league to have those kind of debates. I just think it's a silly debate. Or not a debate at all. Caitlin Clark is by far the best rookie in the WNBA. But even that conversation is a good thing. And it's been good vibes for the WNBA. Just good things, culminating in this week when the news came down that the WNBA is promised $2.2 billion in their media rights deal. They would make per year for 11 years, 4 to 6 times. The initial reporting was 4 times more. Now some other reporting says it's actually 6 times more than they were getting paid on a yearly basis with their current media rights deal. What a windfall. What an awesome story for the WNBA that they're cashing in at such a high level, and what they're going to be able to do with this money, and player salaries are going to go up, and the investment that these owners can make, maybe it seeing the value there, maybe some richer owners are going to buy in and invest, and it's going to make the league better. Like, it was such a great story earlier this week. And then here comes the WNBA Players Association head, Terry Carmichael Jackson, saying the NBA is not giving them enough, because that's how this works. The WNBA didn't go out and negotiate their TV deal with ESPN and Amazon and NBC. The NBA negotiated the rights for both leagues. They got their massive deal, and then they determined this much of that is going to go to the WNBA. So Terry Carmichael Jackson is saying essentially that they're not getting enough. That's not enough. 4 to 6 times more than they were making is not enough. For a league, mind you, that in its entire nearly 3-decade history has only lost the NBA money. Every year they are a loss for the NBA. They've never been profitable, not one single year of their existence. And every year the NBA continues to subsidize them. And now they're getting the biggest media rights deal they've ever had, and it's not enough. And she says that she's looking forward to seeing how they arrived at that $200 million a year valuation for their media rights. I'm actually more curious what metric she's looking at to say that the league deserves more. Because this is about media rights, right? So let's look at the television ratings. The television ratings for the WNBA is obviously up. It's triple what it was last year. Huge growth, right? Triple. Well, the NBA is giving them 4 to 6 times more per year. So if you based it on viewership, and I don't know, that's it, I'm sure that's one metric that they use. But if you just take that, their audience has tripled, but yet they're getting 4 to 6 times more. To say nothing of the fact that one team, and more specifically, one player, is responsible for almost all the growth they're seeing. There's been 12 WNBA games through the end of June. 12 WNBA games through the end of June that have gotten at least 1 million viewers. 11 of them had Caitlin Clark playing in them. But it's not just the Indiana Fever who are getting the money. It's everybody in the league. So essentially, the rest of the WNBA is being subsidized twice, first from the NBA and then by Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. So maybe the Indiana Fever should come out and say, hey, wait a minute. You think you're going to evenly distribute all of this? We're the ones driving these ratings. We're the ones driving attendance. How about let's go have a pecking order here and we get the lion's share of it? What this is the charter flight thing all over again. Right? Everybody wants the WNBA to get as much money as they possibly can. No one is against the WNBA getting money. Nobody is against the WNBA getting charter flights. Like they don't deserve it. Right? But this is business. Okay? Charter flights cost more money. You're not making any. You are being subsidized by the NBA. The NBA is allowing you to play professionally and travel all across the country. Okay? WNBA players don't have to pay their own way to these different cities. But they want a charter flight. And it's fine. I understand why they want it, but they were so vocal about it that it made it seem like that was their only thing they were worried about. Like consume them on a daily basis, that they didn't have charter flights. And to the general fan, it was like, you're complaining about charter flights? This league has lost money every single year for nearly 3 decades. This is not about, withholding money from the WNBA, or the WNBA doesn't deserve. It's economics. What if the NBA said, okay, we're going to give you more, but we're also going to want you to pay us back all the money that you've lost? Okay, good for you for making all this money. We'll give it to you. And they're giving it to them, which is, still very important. It's the NBA's money, and the NBA owns the WNBA. But anyway, we're going to ask you to pay all of it back. All the money we have sunk into this league and basically written off as a loss, we would like to be recouped. And hey, maybe that's what they're doing. Aren't they within their right to do that? It just, that story should be great. And I get it. This is the head of the Players Association. Every head of the Players Association in every league comes off like a pain in the butt. Every single one of them. They're antagonistic because that's what their job is. Their job is to get as much money as they can, get as many perks and benefits as they can for their union. I understand that. But to follow up such an amazing piece of news with this, to say that's not enough, it's a little tone deaf. Even though it's your job, it's still, it takes away from what should be just an awesome story about a league that just continues to grow and break records. And there's a little bit. I've said this before, the spotlight that has been on the WNBA this season has exposed some people for being maybe unfit for their position, maybe a little in over their skis. I don't know. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, didn't I just get done yesterday warning people about getting too carried away with what Russell Westbrook will be on the Denver Nuggets? Paul Pierce clearly did not watch this show yesterday. Bring you what he said and why it's not a good idea next. Drive Time Sports on a Friday, which is the best kind of Drive Time Sports. Ryan Kaufman with you. Don't forget, you can watch the show live on a daily basis as long as you follow us on social media. Doesn't matter if it's Facebook, X, Instagram, or YouTube. We can be found with the same handle at XTRA Sports 1300. I am going to start hating the Nuggets edition of Russell Westbrook before he even is officially a Denver Nugget at this rate. I like the addition of Russell Westbrook. I've wanted it to happen from the outset. I was talking about Russell Westbrook on the Denver Nuggets weeks before free agency began. I was in on the idea of Russell Westbrook, still am, but I'm being pulled in a different direction. I just yesterday talked about the importance of understanding what Russell Westbrook is being brought in to do and having expectations for him that match up with what his role is going to be. And wouldn't you know it? Not surprised. This is Paul Pierce on Undisputed. Okay. This would have been a popular take about 3 years ago. Right? There was a time where the perception was that the best thing for Jamal Murray to do would be to play off the ball. But then he came back and the Nuggets won a title. And in back-to-back years, Jamal Murray has had his career high in assists. It works. Him and Jokic in that two-man game works. Jamal Murray is not a traditional point guard. But Nikola Jokic is not a traditional center, and that's why they work so well together. Jamal Murray's not going to be a double-digit assist guy. He doesn't have to be. But they have put so much work, the Nuggets have, into developing Jamal Murray into a better facilitator. In the last 2 years, he's averaging over 6 assists a game, and they just won the NBA title not that long ago with that arrangement. That's the best part of the Nuggets. As long as Jamal Murray is right, he and Jokic are unstoppable. And now essentially you're asking Russell Westbrook to run that two-man game with Nikola Jokic. You're breaking up the best aspect of this team. To say nothing of the fact that now Christian Braun's not going to be with the top unit, which means you have to take out Michael Porter Jr. and put in Peyton Watson because now you're losing defense. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And then another problem on top of it is if you put Russell Westbrook with the starters or with the first unit, guess what Michael Malone has to continue to do? Stagger Jamal Murray with the second unit. Wasn't everybody all up in arms after the Timberwolves series saying that Jokic and Jamal are too tired and they need rest? Well, how are they going to get rest when a guy who could potentially score for them off the bench is now being put into the starting five. If you're worried about the workload that Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic have, you do not want Russell Westbrook in the starting five. The perfect place for Russell Westbrook to be. And Michael Malone said this not because of Russell Westbrook, but he was asked the other day at Summer League, what did his team still need? And he said a backup to Jamal Murray. You don't think he had Russell Westbrook in his head? You don't think he knew that all this was going to happen? He said, we need a backup to Jamal Murray, and Calvin Booth is all over it. And he was saying that because he knew that Russell Westbrook was going to be traded and going to be bought out, and the Nuggets were going to sign him. Take it from Michael Malone. He may not know how to deal with young players in the right way. He may not be totally bought in to Calvin Booth's vision for how this team continues to compete moving forward. But I don't know that I've ever had much of an issue with the way he handles veterans. I think that's his specialty. And he is telling you, without saying Russell Westbrook's name out loud, that that's exactly what Russell Westbrook is going to be, a backup to Jamal Murray. And that's exactly what they need. And that's exactly what he can bring. I was saying when these rumors first came out, don't look at Russell Westbrook like a replacement for Bruce Brown. Now I got to say, don't look at Russell Westbrook as a replacement for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I didn't think that was even on the table, but clearly now it is. I get it. Anybody with Nikola Jokic sounds interesting, right? And that's what Paul Pierce is saying. Wow, could you imagine Russell Westbrook playing with Nikola Jokic? Yeah. I imagine myself playing with Nikola Jokic and getting a few buckets. Anyone can play with him. Anyone seems exciting playing with Nikola Jokic. And there will be times when Russell Westbrook will be on the floor with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. That's just not the right path forward every game out. I know that Nuggets fans don't want to take any cues from the Los Angeles Lakers, but ask any Laker fan. Going from Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to Russell Westbrook is not a transition you want to make. Russell Westbrook being in the starting five was a disaster in LA. Do you think that him being in the starting five with the Denver Nuggets would be that much better than it was in LA? To say nothing of the fact that Russell Westbrook is coming off a career low in many stat categories. He is not the player he once was. If you could just keep this within its proper context and understand who he's replacing Reggie Jackson. He's playing Reggie Jackson's role. It is an upgrade. It is good job, Calvin Booth. This is a move that you can like. And I know it's intriguing, and I know he's a big name, and that causes people to want to get carried away. But again, I am asking you not to. And just keep in mind what he is. He's signing for the veterans minimum for a reason. There's a reason why the Clippers traded him to Utah. There's a reason why the Jazz are buying him out. There's a reason that the Nuggets are going to get him on the vet minimum. The tweets that drive me crazy that I see, the league really let ... And it happens throughout the league, right? The league really let the Lakers get this guy, or the Suns get this guy, or the Celtics get this guy. And they're doing it with Russell Westbrook. Yeah, the league is kind of okay with it. This isn't Drew Holiday ending up in Boston here. Okay? But I'm serious. I'm going to hate this move before he's even officially a Denver Nugget. It doesn't work. Christian Brown, and that might be influencing Paul Pierce a little bit too. Right? And I'm skeptical. I am skeptical of Christian Brown being an adequate replacement for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. But at least Christian Brown has flashed some of the same abilities that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope does. My questions about him are not that he can't shoot threes. My question is he going to take them when he has the opportunity? I saw a timid Christian Brown in Game 7 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now he's going to be expected to take those shots and knock them down. He wasn't even taking them against Minnesota. But I've seen Christian Brown hit timely threes before. I've seen Christian Brown defend before. My question with Christian Brown is, can he do it at the same level for as many minutes a game as Kentavious Caldwell-Pope did? And I'm skeptical that he can. But that's the Nuggets' plan here. And there's not a better plan out there. Okay, if this is the route that they wanted to go, then they got to stick to it. Christian Brown is a replacement for KCP. Russell Westbrook is the replacement for Reggie Jackson. If you keep that in mind, then it's going to be fun and intriguing to watch Russell Westbrook on the Denver Nuggets. Let him be with the second unit and just go do his thing. You go do you, Russ. Do whatever you want. You want to chase triple doubles off the bench? Go for it. You want to be a ball hog? Go for it. Well, maybe don't do that. We do want you to facilitate a little bit. But the times that Russell Westbrook worked in LA, not for the Lakers, but even with the Lakers, when they put him on the bench, it looked better. When he went to the Clippers, it worked better because he was coming off the bench. So I like Russell Westbrook to the Denver Nuggets as long as we're all on the same page of what he's going to be. And if I told you that this upcoming season, that the best thing that Russell Westbrook will do for the Denver Nuggets is allow Jamal Murray to rest, isn't that alone a win? If that's what Russell Westbrook and Dario Saric can do, is give Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic a few extra minutes of rest, you'll take that. You'll absolutely take that. Now, that doesn't account for the loss of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. That's a separate issue. But Russell Westbrook doesn't fix that problem either. He's not even here yet. But he will be. Just got to understand it. And you know what kind of is interesting about this whole thing. Russell Westbrook, in an alternate universe where the Denver Nuggets pay Kentavious Caldwell-Pope what he is worth, okay, and go over the second luxury tax apron, you know they could have still brought in Russell Westbrook, right? The only thing that staying below the second apron allowed the Nuggets to do was sign Dario Saric. Could have Russell Westbrook anyway, and then kept Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Now, there'd still be the issue of trying to find somebody to give Jokic a little bit of rest. And I do like the Dario Saric addition. But I would, more than anything, like the Nuggets to have kept Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. 719-247-1313. I'll take your thoughts on Russell Westbrook in Denver. We think, we're pretty sure, everyone's pretty sure, but it's not a done deal yet. Love to get your perspective and thoughts on the soon-to-be newest member of the Denver Nuggets. Coming up next, I have loved Nick Saban on ESPN. It was a great get for ESPN, but he did say something this week during SEC Media Days that I do disagree with, even though I respect Nick Saban immensely. We'll talk about next on Extra Sports 1300. From the Chief Vapor Traffic Center, here's an Extra Sports Reminder coming up at 5:30, coverage of the Switchbacks in Louisville City. Roland Vargas and I will be on the call for that one. Hopefully you stick around for that. Be a big one. Louisville leading the Eastern Conference. Nick Saban has been terrific on ESPN. This week, he was at SEC Media Day. I think on College Game Day, he's going to be fantastic. I think he's really smart. I think he has a lot of good ideas. And I think that he has some ideas that I don't agree with. And his big take out of SEC Media Day, while not surprising, I don't agree with it. Take a listen.
The downside of it is I just wish that we could put the 12 best teams in the playoffs, not worry about conference champions and all that kind of stuff. And if you do get beat in the conference championship game and you're one of the best teams, you still should get in there because you played really quality opponents and you played good football.
It is not surprising that Nick Saban had this opinion during SEC Media Days because this is a very SEC line of thinking. They look at it every year and they say, we are the greatest thing in college football, and they're not completely off. But they say we deserve, I don't even know what the number, 10, 9, 8 of the 12 teams in the playoff. That's what any SEC fan will tell you. I don't agree. And I with 12 teams, I really don't agree. With 4 teams, I think he's more on point with that. And we just saw that this year. Right? Florida State loses Jordan Travis. And the committee's job is to pick the 4 best teams. And Florida State, with that loss, were not one of the 4 best teams. So I was more on Saban's side when it was 4 teams. It's now 12. The game has changed. And it doesn't have to be as much about just the best teams. You can allow for opportunity. You can allow for there to be a group of 5 team in. In fact, I think 12 is too many. I've been a proponent of an 8-team playoff, and even then, I'm okay with conference champions getting automatic bids. It's about opportunity. I just don't think there are enough elite college football teams to where if 12 teams get in, that we're really going to be wringing our hands over teams 13 and 14. I know we'll do it no matter what because it's a thing to talk about. And if you feel strongly because you are a fan of said team that gets snubbed or you're a fan of the conference, you will make a little bit of a stink about it. But come on. For instance, if the 12-team playoff was last year, Michigan, Washington, Alabama, FSU, Texas would get in as the Power 5 representative. Obviously, that has changed now with the Pac-12 being essentially dead. Liberty would have been in because they were the highest ranked conference champion. And then the other teams that would have been in were Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Missouri, Penn State, and Ole Miss. A third of the field would have been SEC. That's enough. And I'm sorry, there's no way that you can legitimately say you would care as much about LSU and Arizona being left out as you did Georgia and Florida State. The entire premise around LSU was if not for Jaden Daniels, then this would be a terrible football team. Jaden Daniels was the only thing keeping LSU from being Vanderbilt, essentially. Now, that's probably an exaggeration, but the whole premise of Jaden Daniels was that he was so good and he was elevating an LSU team that really, quite frankly, wasn't that good. And now you're saying that people are going to cry a river because LSU is left out of a 12-team playoff? You don't have nearly the leg to stand on that you would with FSU or Georgia. When you expand the field like this, and mind you, it's going to keep expanding. Now, they've put those talks on hold for now, and they're not going to discuss it till next calendar year, but you know they're going to expand. So the SEC honks are going to get their way because those additional slots are not going to go to Air Force. They're not even going to go to CU in the Big 12. They're all going to go to the SEC. So they're going to get what they want. They're going to get more slots for their teams. With the 12-team playoff, it's okay to have opportunity. It's okay to give automatic bids to conference champions. There aren't enough teams in college football that you would be losing sleep over the fact that they don't get to play for a national championship. Again, nobody outside of Baton Rouge and Tucson would be that upset over LSU and Arizona not making it in and Liberty getting in. And eventually, this whole thing will change because they'll expand. SEC will get more spots, or mostly the SEC, but a couple will go to the Big 10. And then teams in the Big 12 and teams in the Group of Five and the ACC will jump ship. They'll go over there. And then eventually we'll be down to just 2 conferences. And then this won't be a problem at all because it'll just be the 2 conferences like we have in the NFL. That's the road we're going down. It's okay to not all the way fast forward to that right this second. I like the fact that the top-ranked Group of 5 conference champion will get in to the college football playoff. I like that. And it's not just because I'm in a state or in a city with a Group of 5 team. I think it is good that one of these teams gets an opportunity to be in there. And I'm okay with, even though I acknowledge that the SEC is superior and I bow down to their superiority, I'm okay with the Big 12 getting an automatic bid. I'm okay with the ACC getting an automatic bid. I don't need that many SEC teams in. There aren't that many deserving SEC teams. Because what Saban is arguing is a little bit different. Right? Nick Saban is saying if there are 12 teams, put the 12 best teams in. I'm saying there aren't 12 deserving teams of being in the college football playoff. There just aren't. We're not there yet. When everybody is playing in one of 2 conferences and it looks more like the NFL, then it will eventually take care of itself. With 4 teams, I'm with Saban. Right? You got to go with the 4 best teams. With 12, it's okay. We don't need to have LSU if they're the 5th best team in the SEC. We really don't. And that's just last year, right? You're to say nothing of the fact that now Texas and Oklahoma are in the SEC. I mean, is Nick Saban really going to be upset if Kansas State is the only Big 12 team in and Clemson is the only ACC team in, and then we get one group of 5 team, Boise State. Those 3 spots out of 12 is really going to upset people so much. Every at-large spot is going to go to the SEC, or almost everyone. I don't agree. 4 teams, yeah. 4 best teams. You got to be ruthless. You got to look outside of conference champions. But with 12, yeah, you can. Again, I'm looking at the field, and there is no way that I would have gone on air the day after the college football playoff field was announced and said LSU and Arizona got robbed. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Nick Saban's comments. Do you agree it should be just the best 12, regardless of whether they won their conference or not? Or do you say, you know what, a couple of spots can be given to conference champions? If you wanted FSU in the college football playoff, you better agree with me if you were on the side of FSU getting into the college football playoff, because that's what the whole thing was about. They won their conference. They should be in. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, if you enjoyed the Shohei Ohtani Ippei Mitsuhara story, you may enjoy this one out of the NFL. 719-247-1313 is the number. Nick Saban saying that even with the new playoff format in college football, it still should be no automatic bids given and just the 12 best teams. I disagree. I was on the same side as Nick Saban when it was just 4, but now it is 12. It is okay to give out some opportunity and make the conference championship games mean something. Albert says when Florida State, Miami, Clemson, and possibly Notre Dame join the Big 12, it will be 3 conferences and no one else will matter. I think you're a step behind where I am. I'm fast forwarding to when it's just a lesser form of the NFL and it's just 2 conferences. Although if they have promotion and relegation, that'll be good. But yeah, we're going down this path. Okay, and it's not going to be a rule change for the college football playoff. They'll keep the opportunity in there, but it will fix itself because college football will become like this Pangea, and it will just be 1 or 2 conferences melded together, and all the bids to the college football playoff will go through there. And maybe if they're feeling especially generous, they'll put in promotion and relegation and allow someone to have a seat at the big boys table, but they're going to get smoked every week and they're not going to go to the playoff. It's like, just be patient, Nick. It'll get there. Let's keep some semblance of college football before we completely go the NFL route. And even then in the NFL, look at the NFC South. Like either the Buccaneers, Falcons, Carolina, one of those teams are going to get in. They're not one of the 7 best teams in their conference. So even if they're following the NFL model, division titles mean something. When only 4 get in, then it's okay to say, you know what? I got away a conference champion against a non-conference champion. I can't automatically put in a lesser conference champion. But 12, just, we're not there yet. Not there yet where we got to cut off the opportunity. This story out of Jacksonville, and I don't know if it came out back in December when this dude pled guilty to all of these charges, but I'm picking up on it now. Maybe it's just getting through because it's a quieter time of year. So the Jacksonville Jaguars are suing one of their former employees, and his job was to handle their virtual credit cards. He ran their virtual credit card program. Do you go to school for that? I want to be in charge of a team's virtual credit card program. At any rate. So this guy, and stop me if you've heard a story similar to this, siphoned money from the Jacksonville Jaguars to cover, you guessed it, his gambling debts. And to fund his lavish lifestyle. We do not know if Ipe Mitsuhara took some of Shohei Ohtani's money to buy himself a Lambo or to put a nice leather couch in his apartment. But he used Shohei's money to cover his gambling debts. Doesn't this stuff like sound like it's from yesteryear? Like when I hear that covering gambling debts and things like that, I think of like bookies and guys getting kneecapped. And no, it's FanDuel, it's DraftKings. Now, FanDuel and DraftKings are not breaking anybody's kneecaps, but he's pouring all this money into these apps, and he's losing, and he's having to cover his losses in that way. This is the same as the Shohei Ohtani story. And the Jaguars were none the wiser. This guy stole $22 million from them, most of it in an 8-month period, and no one noticed. And that's the thing. Even though it has been proven that Shohei Ohtani was not even, because where I was with Shohei Ohtani was, I think he's trying to help his friend out. Nope, he knew nothing about it. Or at least that's what law enforcement has come to the conclusion of. Ohtani didn't know. So this is the same thing. How do you not know? And I'm so tired of the, well, they have so much money, da 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 da. You know, the most successful businesses and most successful people in life, some of the richest people on planet Earth, watch their money like a hawk. They know where not every dime, for them it's like every million, but they know where it's going. The best companies and the wealthiest people in the world, Warren Buffett, these kind of guys, are on top of their money all the time. And they're also quite frugal. And I'm not saying that rich people have to be frugal, but how do you not know where your money? You're an NFL franchise. You're a multi-billion-dollar company, essentially. And you don't know that this dude is lifting $22 million from you? I don't care what percentage of your annual income that is. That is a lot of money that is just leaving your organization. And the cons and the people that work for them, nobody's the wiser? Even with the result of the Shohei Ohtani story that he legitimately didn't know. And he is a victim, just like the Jaguars are victims in all of this. And that's why they're suing the guy, and they're probably going to win. But there is a little bit of criticism that should go towards the offended parties. Like, just a little bit, right? Shohei Ohtani is losing all of this money, and he has no idea. I'm sorry. Like, okay, if you're willingly, or not willingly, but unbeknownst to you, if this much money is being taken from you, maybe you're getting paid too much money. Maybe that's an unpopular take. I'm not trying to be anti-rich person here. But it's like people who don't have a lot of money, they're budgeting. They're checking their bank account. They're doing that. And I get it. It's born out of necessity. But it's a little bit infuriating when there are multi-billion-dollar companies and multi-millionaire athletes, actors that have so much money that they can just get it stolen and they don't notice. So there's some criticism that goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars here. They are the offended party. They are the victims, and they should get restitution. But it's like, come on. You gotta be. Who's minding the store here? That this guy could take that much money, most of it in a relatively short amount of time. I'm curious what part of the calendar he chose, during the season, because that's what I got to imagine, because during the offseason, there's not a lot of income coming in. I figured the guy might be caught if he was siphoning money during the summer. I'm sorry, I can't let it go that Shohei Ohtani and now the Jacksonville Jaguars allowed themselves to be taken for this much money. At best, they're naive. At worst, maybe they're not great stewards of their money. They should be more buttoned up than this. Both Ohtani and the Jaguars. And there is something a little poetic about, not poetic, but fitting. Like if I started off the segment by saying an NFL team got $22 million stolen from them and they didn't even notice, who would you think? You would automatically start to think of the most dysfunctional franchises, and you would inevitably land, oh yeah, didn't a franchise make Urban Meyer their head coach? That one. I bet it's that organization. And you'd be right. This is Jacksonville Jaguars. And here's a kicker with this story as well. Further proving that Florida is just, I don't even know that it's part of America. It's like some sovereign nation that is governed by a very different set of rules than the rest of society. There is a Florida law that allows the Jaguars or any suing party to actually recoup up to 3 times what was stolen from them. So Jacksonville's not simply suing this guy, who, by the way, is in prison for the next 6.5 years. They're not just suing him for the $22 million he took. Oh no, they're looking for over $66 million in damages, and Florida law allows them to do that. So if they don't even have to get every penny they're asking for. Even if they go to a middle ground between 66 and 22, it turns out to be a money-making venture for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're going to make money out of this. How's that for backwards? Like, I want them to get every penny that was stolen from them. A crime has been committed. They are the victims of that crime, and they should get restitution. But 3x? It's turning into a new revenue stream for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let their employees steal money from them and then, sue them for 3 times the amount they stole. You can file that under only in Florida. Good luck to Jacksonville. I hope they get the money. I wonder if they noticed when they were starting to go through the machinations of Trevor Lawrence's new contract. Like, they're looking through and like, after this season, we got to pay Trevor Lawrence a lot of money. Do we have the money to pay him? Can we do this? And Shad Khan's telling his people, like, go and find, we don't have enough money to pay Trevor Lawrence. Go find some money. And then somebody goes, wait a minute. Where did this $22 million go out of our virtual credit card program? I'll just say it. Some people don't deserve as much money as they get. 719-24/7. 1313. Coming up next, we'll hit the 3 stories that are driving the show. Don't forget, Switchbacks against Louisville City at 5:30. Switchbacks taking on the best that the Eastern Conference has to offer, not just this year, but pretty much every year for the last 5 or 6. Louisville's got themselves quite a dynasty going in the East. So this will be an interesting one coming up at 5:30. Hope you stick around for that, and hope you stick around for the three stories that are driving the show, including the Rockies splashing the cash. Hello there. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this 719 day. Get it? It's July 19th and our area code is 719. Seems like a perfect night for Colorado Springs soccer team to be in action. And look, they are taking on Louisville City. Our coverage with myself and Roland Vargas coming up at 5:30, but much to do in the meantime. 719 24/7. See, 719. 719 24/7. 1313 is the text and the phone line for your convenience. Let's get this hour, or as it were, half an hour, started with the three stories that are driving the show. Except I don't have. Where is my. Who took my. Somebody took my driving. What's driving the show sounder? Here we go. I don't know who took that out of my log here, but they will pay dearly, I assure you. You just heard Dan Patrick in his Above the Noise commentary. He's an even bigger buzzkill than I am about Russell Westbrook. But I am a little bit of a buzzkill if this is what people think Russell Westbrook will be with the Denver Nuggets. That is Paul Pierce with maybe not the worst idea I've heard all week, but certainly on Undisputed today on FS1. This is not a good idea. It's not. And that's not what Russell Westbrook is being brought in. But let's just take what Paul Pierce is saying and let's poke some holes in it, shall we? First of all, Jamal Murray doesn't have to worry as much about playmaking as a normal point guard would because he has Nikola Jokic with him. The idea is that both of them are good playmakers and both of them can score the basketball. They share that responsibility. In fact, more of the responsibility for facilitating actually falls on Nikola Jokic. And it's actually been a big thing for the Denver Nuggets the last few years for Jamal Murray to take a step forward in his playmaking ability. So you would be undoing that progress that has led to Jamal Murray averaging career highs in assists the last 2 years by bringing in Russell Westbrook. You're also breaking up the best part of the Denver Nuggets, which is the two-man game between Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. I promise you that Russell Westbrook and Nikola Jokic, while it would work because anything works with Nikola Jokic, it would not work as well as the Nuggets had it going in the NBA playoffs 2 years ago. Remember that game against Miami where both guys scored 30 points, both guys had more than 10 assists? Yeah, that's what this duo can be. And you're voluntarily breaking them up for what? To prove that Russell Westbrook still has something left? I feel like this is a very pro Russell Westbrook take for Paul Pierce. The best thing that Russell Westbrook can do is allow Michael Malone to not feel compelled to stagger Jamal Murray with the second unit. If Russell Westbrook can play with Dario Saric and Julian Strother and Peyton Watson, and that bench unit can be better than it was last year, and Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray can charge their battery a little bit more throughout the season, then adding Russell Westbrook is a great deal. I'm not as down on it as Dan Patrick is. Now, I'm also looking at it from the perspective of what they had in Reggie Jackson last year. I'm not comparing Russell Westbrook to what he once was. And I'm certainly not comparing Russell Westbrook to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I'm comparing him to what they got out of that position, which is the backup point guard role, and say he can be better than what they had last year. And Michael Malone, if you listen to him a couple of days ago out in Vegas for NBA Summer League, he told you don't think this whole Russell Westbrook coup was in the works when he told Katie Wingy that the one thing this roster still needs is a backup to Jamal Murray? You don't think he knew that Russell Westbrook was going to eventually end up in Denver? Russell Westbrook is not being brought in to essentially replace Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He's not being brought in to move Jamal Murray over to the 2 guard. He is being brought in to replace Reggie Jackson. That and that alone. If you judge it on that premise, this could work out. If you try to make him any more than an adequate replacement for Reggie Jackson, if not a mild upgrade, then you are going to be severely disappointed. Because to DP's point in his Above the Noise commentary, this is a guy that could not be further removed from his MVP caliber season of 2017. It is getting to the point with all of this Russell Westbrook talk that I'm going to go from really liking this idea even before it came to fruition. I thought of Russell Westbrook as a potential addition to the Denver Nuggets, to hating the idea of Russell Westbrook joining the Denver Nuggets before he even steps foot in the city of Denver. And I don't want to do that because I do think that this is a solid move as long as you keep it in the correct context. Story number 2, the Colorado Rockies have spent a lot of money. And I know that might worry you a little bit because generally when the Rockies spend money, it doesn't work. The Super Bullpen, Mike Hampton, Denny Nagel, Chris Bryant. This team has not had a good track record of overpaying for their talent. But in this case, I think it's okay. They have given Charlie Condon, their first round draft pick from last week's MLB draft, a record signing bonus. Believe it's $9.5 million. This is not a $100 million contract. Okay? This is them giving out a nice little bonus to Charlie Condon. I think this is going to be money well spent. Charlie Condon, for the University of Georgia, hit 37 home runs this year. Not only did that lead college baseball, that was the most that the NCAA has seen since they went to the BB Corps. Since 2011, Condon hit the most home runs in a single season. He also led the NCAA in pretty much every other hitting category that you could. It is quite fortuitous that Condon fell to the Colorado Rockies. And I think that it is a good thing that they're paying him a record-setting bonus. And I think that Charlie Condon could be at 20th and Blake before too long. And then the clock starts to when they either trade him or, more accurately, if he's a franchise face of the franchise type guy, they'll find a way to trade him. If he is anything less than that, they will just let his contract expire and he'll go sign for many more millions elsewhere. That's how the Rockies do it. But if it gets Condon in Colorado to give him that bonus, I'm all for it, because I do think, in all seriousness, this guy's really good. And he can get to the major leagues pretty quickly. And then just my advice would be enjoy him while you can. Here is story number 3.
Physically feeling a lot better than I did at the beginning of the year. After the end of last year, it was tough, and then I haven't played a whole lot. I think that, as the year has gotten better, the year has gone on, I have gotten better. Just wish I could have played a little bit more.
That is Tiger Woods, who will miss his 3rd consecutive cut in a major, which is the longest streak of his great career. And once again, questions are coming up about Tiger Woods. And I do think one is worth delving into, because there is no doubt that he is allowed to keep playing. He has earned the right to keep playing, despite what Colin Montgomery might tell you. But I think the better question is, why? Why does he keep playing? And you listen to him speak, and it's just like, it sounds like he's diluting himself into thinking that he's not far away from winning another major. And he's so far away. And he's only getting further away. He's not getting closer. He's getting further away. And it is on some level sad for Tiger Woods fans to see what he has become. He's Peyton Manning with the noodle arm in the Super Bowl 50 year. Like, it's a little bit sad to see how poorly he is playing in these majors. And you don't want to see somebody that maybe you idolized or at least enjoyed watching play be at this level. It's painful. He's allowed to. I'm not going to tell him he can't play. I just wonder why. And when you listen to him speak, you understand. As delusional as he might be, this is his singular pursuit in his golf career for as long as I can remember. And it's catching Jack. That's what this is about. I don't think that this is a LeBron James thing where he wants to hang on long enough to play in the same field as Charlie. He can get an exemption and do that. This is about catching Jack. And as nearly impossible as that is going to be at this point, Tiger's going to keep talking himself into that he can do it. And this has to do with the time in his career that was half taken from him, half he gave it up. Maybe more so he gave it up, right? With some of the things that happened to him in his personal life. He lost a chunk of his career. If that Thanksgiving night doesn't happen, or more accurately, the actions that he took leading up to that Thanksgiving night, he would have blown past Jack Nicklaus. And no one can tell me any different. But he had his personal problems, and then the health problems started to mount once he did come back. This is a guy who had a singular focus for his career and had a big piece of that career, probably in his mind, taken from him. And he's going to pursue this as long as he can. It is a little sad. It's not how you want to remember Tiger Woods. It is his prerogative to keep going out there. And these tournaments benefit from just his mere presence. But it's just like, you watch him play and then you hear him talk and you're just like, Tiger, dude, you can't. I'm sorry, you just can't. He will miss the cut in the Open Championship, his third straight cut missed in a major. That is the longest such streak in his career. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. Got one more segment, and then will be time for Switchback Soccer here on Extra Sports 1300. Switchback soccer coming up in just a little bit. Couple more items to attend to here. 719-247-1313 is the number if you want to get in a quick text here before the end of the show. Talking earlier about the imagine the Shohei Ohtani, Ippei Mitsuhara story, but with an NFL franchise. That's essentially what we have, as the Jacksonville Jaguars are suing a former employee that took $22 million from them to cover his gambling debts and furnish his lavish lifestyle. He is accustomed to a certain level of lifestyle, and he wanted to maintain that on the Jaguars' dime. Although, if you're running the virtual credit card program for an NFL franchise, I don't know that you are a high-level executive that is, going on a ton of trips, but he felt like he deserved that kind of lifestyle, and by golly, he earned it. Well, not earned it, he stole it. So, and the kicker about it is that the Jags and any wronged party in the great state of Florida can sue for up to 3 times the amount of actual damages. So if the Jags fully collect on this thing, they'll actually come out ahead, remarkably far ahead. It's wild. But Albert does bring up a decent point. How much will said Jaguar employee earn in the 30 years after he or she gets out of the slammer? $2 million? No money will be made by Jacksonville, but what a deterrent. Well, and part of this is they can take stuff. So maybe they don't get the money back, but if this dude has like some really nice couches, maybe he has a vehicle or some artwork that he bought, like they can take that stuff too. So the guy wanted to live a lavish lifestyle. I got to imagine he's got some valuable stuff in his house. And the Jaguars can take that too to get as close to $66 million as they can. So, yeah, maybe they don't make their money back. But maybe the waiting room in the Jaguar team offices has like a Monet or something in it. I mean, that has value. Or they can go and sell that. Take it to an art dealer. I just find it crazy that you can sue somebody for more than... And it's not even emotional distress that the Jaguars are claiming. It's just Florida law allows you to sue for up to 3 times more than it was actually owed to you. Florida, man. It's a different world out there. I had no idea about that this existed, but apparently Troy Aikman has a patent on the number 8. And Lamar Jackson is challenging that. This is from ESPN. Jackson, who owns or has applied for several trademarks using the number in various phrases, says Aikman's attempt to use 8, EIGHT, on apparel and bags would be, quote, likely to cause confusion or cause mistake or to deceive. Oh, so this isn't Troy Aikman owning a patent. Lamar Jackson is trying to file for a patent for the number 8. I love Lamar Jackson, but this is akin to Paris Hilton trying to trademark That's Hot. Like, I'm sorry. There are some things that you are just not allowed to do. You're not allowed to claim as your intellectual property. Because that's what this is about, right? Did Lamar Jackson come up with 8? Is that his? It is not. So if you're just going to put 8 on something, then you know what? You're just going to have to run the risk that people are going to accidentally give money to Troy Aikman than to you. If you want your entire identity to be your number, that's going to happen, right? That's why we have names. We have names because we are not just numbers. But we also have names to set ourselves apart from other people. And by the way, where's Steve Young in all of this? When I think of the number 8 in the NFL, when I think of the number 8, I think of a lot of other athletes. Kobe Bryant being chief among them. But even if you just take the NFL, I think it's Steve Young first. Is Steve Young going to weigh in on this? Is he not trying to make some money? Can't you just put LJ8? Make your own logo, trademark that? That's intellectual property. He's trying to own a number, people. That shouldn't be allowed. Did Paris Hilton ever trademark? That's hot. Was she successful in that? Because that was ridiculous when I saw it. Like, there are just some things that are not owned by a person. And I think it should be somewhat merit-based. Okay? Saying that's hot does not rise to that level. That is not ingenious on the part of Paris Hilton. So I hope that she did not get a trademark. And I hope that Lamar Jackson does not, even though I enjoy his work very much. Can't trademark a number. Aaron says, what about Ovi? Ovi would be another one. I think Kobe first, Ovi, Cal Ripken. There are a lot of 8s. But even in the NFL, I don't think of Lamar Jackson or even Troy Aikman first. If you're going to base your identity on a number, you're going to have to share that identity with other people. I don't make the rules. That'll do it for me. It was my pleasure to serve you. Hopefully you stick around. I'm going to go rope in my broadcast partner, and we're going to call some switchback soccer coming up next here on Extra Sports 1300.